Okay, so moving on, right? Uh, parametric EQ, parametric EQ, yes. So, how does parametric EQ work, right? So we've actually dived into it a little bit. Yeah, using the Pro Q3, right? So I'm going to just do this. I'm going to open another one. Okay, don't worry. Let me just do this. Yeah. So default, back to default. So this is a parametric EQ, right? So from this parametric EQ, we already did high shelf, low shelf, high cut, low cut earlier, right? We already did those earlier. Now, parametric EQ, how do we use them? What's the advantage of parametric EQ? One thing about parametric EQ is that it is easy to use as long as you know what you're doing, which is why I also said in the first video to understand frequency. Understand frequency is very, very important. So the frequency that a human being can actually hear comfortably is between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And I also said this in my first video, in the first series video for equalizers, basically, that majority of human beings actually can't hear up to 20k. We can hear up to 17k, some actually hear up to 15k. So basically, the older you get, the more you use your ears, the more they age, the more they worn out, so the less you can actually perceive. So the way a baby will perceive sound is different from the way an adult will perceive sound, right? So even individual itself, if you have 10 adults in the house, no matter how professional if everyone is, the way they perceive the sound is going to be different. The way they perceive each frequency will be different entirely. So there might be those that can listen up to 2 or up to 20,000 hertz, and there are also those that can maybe listen up to 17,000 hertz. It is still okay. Hmm? So yeah, parametric EQ. What do we use parametric EQ for first? We use it to shape sound, just like any other processor you have out there. Whether it is the graphic equalizer, the high shelf, low shelf, or the low cut. On a parametric EQ, you can use any of these techniques to actually shape the sound. How do you want it to sound? How do you want your audio to sound like? Um, so already have this, right? To worship. So we'll still continue working with this in particular, right? We'll continue working with this. Now I need you to note one thing, basically three things. When it comes to parametric EQ, like properly setting it up, there are three key controls on any parametric EQ you see. Three key controls on any parametric EQ you see at all. First is frequency, which I've been saying. Frequency, that is where I'm putting that. Is it, if you're following up, if you look at where my cursor right now is, directly below my cursor, you see a 79.68 hertz, right? That means that point my cursor is right now is the area of 79.68 hertz. Then when I move it up, as you can see, it's also moving the number. That's the frequency that my cursor is at that moment in time, right? So number one is frequency. Number two is gain. Number two is gain, right? So gain is basically telling me that okay, if I'm taking my band up, for instance, let's say I'm pulling this place up. As you can see, if you look at above that dialog that just opened above, you see 401.97 hertz. Directly below that, you see plus 1.70 dB. That means I just increased the frequency of 401.97 hertz by plus 7.70 dB. That's what it means. And I can also reduce it. So that means I've just minus it, right? But this time it's now 407.10 hertz. I reduced it by minus 183 dB, right? Decibels. Now you now have the bandwidth, which is usually always represented by Q. That's the bandwidth. So the bandwidth is basically how wide do you want that particular band, whatever you're doing to spread. For example, now this is a bell EQ, right? This is a bell, right? So I can tiny it and make it not spread all the way, because yes, what I'm doing right now is I reduce this particular point by minus 1.83 dB, right? But it also affects the space around it. So as you can see here, I'm going above. I'm already heading towards this area, but the EQ is still continuing towards all this area, right? So this is the place that is minus 8.3. It still affects the area around it. So I could decide to like reduce it, bring it up. As you can see, the Q is going up. So the higher the number the Q goes, the tinier it becomes. As you can see now, it is tiny. So I don't have to worry about the size anymore. I can just decide to work on a particular frequency. In a similar way that we undo the graphic EQ, this is how the bandwidth works. And I can also decide to spread it back out. So the lower the number you go, the lower you are for the bandwidth to spread. That is, the lower the number, the wider the bandwidth spreads out to affect all the frequencies. While the higher it goes, the tinier it is, so it affects single frequencies, not as wide, basically. Right? Now, if we want to find the frequency, we want to use an EQ, basically. We want to make use of this equalizer, right, for a purpose, right? We already have a track over there. We already have a track in here right now. So let's play it. If you, oh my soul, rejoice. Now, there's no issue with this track, at least from what I'm actually hearing. There's no but we can actually treat it better. Like, for instance, now, I want to make use of this parametric equalizer, right? So how do I know how to use it properly? How do I boost? Where do I know where I'm boosting? Where do I know where I'm reducing? By the way, when you're boosting, right, it is called additive. That is, you're basically adding plus, right? Additive EQ. And when you're reducing, it is called subtractive EQ, right? Subtractive EQ, additive EQ, subtractive EQ, right? So now, when do I know that, okay, at this particular point, I would like to boost, or at this particular point, I would like to subtract? First tip I'll actually give you guys is this: subtract first. It makes things easier. In most cases, subtract first. If you're a beginner and you're watching this video, subtract first. It's very, very important. After subtracting, you subtract first to actually take out any nuances, any nuisance basically, yeah, nuisance or muddiness in the mix, right? That's what you do. Right now, this is a vocal. This is just a voice. You know what? Let us bring in something else. Let's do this quickly. Let me see if I can find something I can use. Not you. Let's see. Okay, let's just check from here. So I'm just looking for something random. Just something random. Maybe not that random. Okay, this works. This works for me. So let's go drag that in here. Okay, so that's good. So I'm gonna just look that. I'm gonna mute this guy right now. So we have this. So this actually has bass and it has a wider range of frequency than the vocal that we've been using so far. So same thing here. I'm just gonna drop the EQ over it. The Pro Q3. So yeah. So let's see. I want to fix a problem. As you can see, the frequency is all around. So let's say there's an issue with this, for instance, and I want to fix it. The first thing I'll do is go high. Like what I'm hearing right now. By the way, there's this issue I see a lot of engineers doing nowadays. You just pull it up. Mind you, if you pull it up like 30 dB like you're having here actually, you will definitely hear something wrong. Right? So don't overdo it. If you want to pick it up to hear you're looking for something wrong, do 5 to 10 dBs. above. Anything above that is really too drastic, because I don't know why you be pulling up to 30 dB and expect not to hear something wrong. You surely hear something wrong because you're actually putting on a certain frequency. So when you pull out too much on it, you hear something wrong, right? So actually, I'm not hearing anything wrong like that. But yeah. Okay, but let's see. I'm bringing this. So subtractive, right? This subtractive EQ. Now let's say I want to boost somewhere, right? Okay, I can actually do 10 to 15 dB. Yes, not 5 to 10. 10 to 15 dB. I'll boost to actually know, like, gauge where you want to maybe reduce or add, right? So additive EQ, subtractive EQ, right? So in a case, let's say in a case, so this is additive here because I added, and this is subtractive because I subtracted, because it went below this line basically, and this one went above this line. Now, that's me. So let's say I want to make it sound a bit more bassy, right? I can decide to apply a shelf, right? I can decide to switch to a low shelf, right? And just play. Yeah. So that's also part of it, right? So cuts and boosts, right? So basically, if you want to cut, this is why I always advise to cut first, because when you cut, you gain more clarity. You can actually gain more clarity, but it depends on how you use it. So for instance, let's say I want to cut and I just did like this. You see, I'm missing some elements now because I already cut them out of the music. So be careful now. Use the equalizers. Very, very important. Be careful now to use the when you use the equalizer too. So equalizer is a very, very good tool, but it also depends on how you use it. Do not mismanage it. Do not overly cut or do not overly subtract or add. Do not overly subtract or add anything unless you find it entirely necessary for what you're actually doing. If it is not, do not do it. I want to also advise you, please do your ear training. Training your ears is very, very important. If your ears are not trained and you're just using an equalizer blindly, then you're wrong. You're wrong, actually. You're in the wrong. So if you actually want to make use of an equalizer, you need to know how to identify frequencies. I also need to learn how to identify when something sounds wrong, because it's only when you know what sounds wrong that you can actually fix it. When you know what is the issue, then you can actually fix the problem. But if you don't know what the issue is, then you're just moving blindly, and in most cases you actually just make it worse, right? Yeah. So I'll see you in the next one actually. So this is it. Parametric EQ is straightforward. It is straightforward, no stress at all. But learn about your frequencies, please. Very, very important. Understand your frequencies. Train your ears. Train your ears. Know about gain, please. Gain and volume are two different things, right? Gain and volume are two different things. Yeah. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Remember to subscribe. Very, very important. Subscribe, like, share, leave a comment in the comment section. I'll see you in the next one.